So then, let's start with this huge night in Manchester United's history. Two big stories. We can get across both of them now with Ben Ransom, who is at Old Trafford for us this evening. Hello there, Ben. I know you headed off to Old Trafford to cover the Ronaldo story, and then in the last 20 minutes or so, we've got these huge developments regarding the Glazers as well. We'll come to Ronaldo in a moment, but let's start with this news that we hear the club is ready to consider fresh ownership or at least investment. It's been 17 years of Glazer reign. How big is this news then for those fans who we know have wanted the Glazers gone for so long?
Well, it's potentially huge news, isn't it? I mean, look, the language there is very much loose in terms of being open to investment and potentially being open to a full sale. Suggestion, though, that a partial sale or just third-party investment is also part of their thinking. You can understand why, given the global economic situation. I can imagine the forecasts looking forward for economists involved in major football clubs are telling us that perhaps they're not potentially going to be earning the same sorts of revenues in the future, and it's going to be more difficult to fund clubs like Manchester United and all the big clubs that are chasing the top European prizes. But even so, it is a step forward, isn't it? It is a huge development when you consider the fact that the Glazers have been, in their time since they took over in 2005, always, when asked, completely committed to this Manchester United ownership model, committed to the future. We go back to the protests that we saw here at Old Trafford against the ownership that really rose to their height around the failed European Super League, didn't we? That's when we saw the greatest number of Manchester United fans come out, show their displeasure, their dissatisfaction with the ownership model for even daring to consider taking Manchester United into that competition. Well, United, along with the other English Premier League clubs, did eventually step back from the brink, didn't they? They came back full of apologies. You remember Joel Glazer specifically with the words he gave to supporters. He was trying to placate them. He was promising to do more of the talking with them, to get their views on the way the club was being run, and even set up a fund so that they could purchase a minority supporter-led stake in the club, which hasn't happened. And it appears as though tonight, certainly the news coming, broken by my colleague over at Sky News, Mark Kleinman, that Manchester United's Glazer family at this point in time are looking now for potentially new investment and potentially a full-scale sale of the club, which, I mean, we can only speculate in terms of the figures that would take, but when you consider that just up the M62 it's a similar situation at Liverpool, two American ownership models looking potentially to move the clubs on, it's a pretty remarkable moment and a real insight, I guess, into how they perceive the future and potential future difficulties challenging at the top of the Premier League.
Not the only remarkable story at Old Trafford, because, of course, Ronaldo, a legend at the club, is now gone. Contract terminated by mutual consent. Do you think after the infamous interview with Piers Morgan last week, this had to be the end game?
I think so. I think when you consider what was said in that interview, Ronaldo did not hold back, did he? I know we've been over it time and time again ever since those first clips came out, let alone the interview itself on Wednesday and Thursday of last week. Remember, we got those tease clips before that, and it was all about criticising pretty much everyone connected to the club, from the ownership to the manager to some of his teammates as well, to former players. So there was a lot of dissatisfaction. I think his position was pretty untenable when you consider some of the language used. I mean, having no respect for Erik ten Hag, feeling betrayed by the hierarchy at the club. It's pretty strong, pretty damning stuff from Ronaldo, and it would have been a huge step to be able to come back from that. And if you remember, in the aftermath of the full interview being broadcast, Manchester United said they would take some time and ascertain the facts before they took their decision. And then we found out that they were considering all of their legal options as to what could happen next with regards to Ronaldo, whether they could indeed agree to a termination of his contract. Well, it appears as though that has now happened in terms of this mutual agreement being confirmed. Ronaldo no longer a Manchester United player, and certainly I've been told that that means that it is a clean break from this point. So that means immediately there'll be no further payments either way. So Ronaldo will not be paid wages. It means that he's given up some 7 months of his this contract worth in the region of £500,000 a week. It also ends any commercial ties, and the timing as well would seem to suggest they wanted to get this done before Portugal began their World Cup campaign, because obviously Ronaldo's interview caused so many headlines and it's caused so much focus on him. I mean, I know he said this week in that press conference that essentially he was bulletproof and he didn't care, and he was Cristiano Ronaldo here to help Portugal, but certainly the focus of the cameras and the media were there to see his relationship with his teammates. They were getting asked questions about Ronaldo. We saw the footage of him meeting Bruno Fernandes, him meeting João Cancelo on the training pitch when he linked up with the squad. So that was an unnecessary distraction, I'm sure, as far as the Portuguese FA would see it. And certainly it seems as though tonight we at least have a resolution on that front. There wasn't really a way back for Cristiano Ronaldo here at Manchester United, especially when you consider the language used against the manager. But he will now be hoping, I'm sure, to focus on the World Cup, where, of course, he captains Portugal against Ghana in their opening match in 2 days' time.
How do you think, though, that the two parties, now this agreement has been reached, but both the club and the player will reflect on how it's played out? Because it's been a stormy few months, hasn't it, with many a headline that the club certainly didn't want.
Absolutely. I mean, I was stood here on transfer deadline day in that summer, just under 18 months ago, actually, when Ronaldo rejoined the club, and it's a huge fanfare. I mean, I remember speaking to supporters, those around the club at the time. There was so much excitement that Cristiano Ronaldo, this megastar, was coming back to United, where he had such a successful time, where he grew as a player, joined, of course, as a 17-year-old, didn't he, and developed into one of the world's best before that move to Real Madrid. And he was on that trajectory for greatness at that point, and I think there was a real excitement. I think it was about families coming together. It was a player that a lot of young Manchester United fans only knew from FIFA and video games, was coming back to play for Manchester United, someone that their parents had spoken about seeing in those early years of his career, and doing some wonderful things, not least taking them to Champions League finals. But I think very early on it became clear, didn't it, that certainly once Ralf Rangnick was in charge, it was going to be difficult to fit him in on the pitch. Now, Ralf Rangnick came in with this whole reputation for being high press, and there was question marks about whether Ronaldo would be able to fit into his system. And Rangnick, I think, struggled to get the best out of him, even though he was the top scorer for United last season. And then when Erik ten Hag came in as well, a man we know is famed for being a disciplinarian, a man who very much realises that he had to come in and do things his way. I think it became clear in the summer, didn't it, that he felt Ronaldo couldn't be given any special treatment, that perhaps he didn't fit into his style of play. And that's been borne out, I guess, with the number of starts that Cristiano Ronaldo has made, with his appearances in the first team. And then fast forward from the start of the season to that match here against Tottenham, when Ronaldo made that very public move of seemingly refusing to come on and then walking off down the tunnel. Even at the time, we realised that was pretty seismic. And again, it was going to take a lot for him to come back from that permanently. I know he played since then. I know he even captained the side since that moment. But the damage was clearly done. And I think in that interview, he revealed very much that there was no way that could be kind of repaired, that relationship. A lot of the fans have started to fall out with him as well. And when you consider that his support here has always been absolute, even in the wake, you remember, of that tussle with Wayne Rooney in that summer when he came back, and the pair of them, the whole country seemingly was against Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo. The United fans sang his name with glee. In fact, they enjoyed mocking England. That's despite the fact Rooney was part of that team. The fans have always stood by him. And I think that interview, the fact that he was starting to lose some of the fan base, I think that told you and tells you everything about the damage done by the interview and what he said. And ultimately, even in the world, one of the world's greatest players, no one is bigger than the club.
And finally, Ben, what next is the question for Ronaldo. He's coming up to 38 in February. It's been a messy end to his time at Manchester United. But in terms of potential suitors, now he's a free agent. Will he still be in demand? Has he still got plenty to offer?
Well, you call it a messy end here. Doesn't sound like there'll be a messy future, because even though Ronaldo in that interview suggested that maybe PSG would be a club you might be interested in, suggestion tonight is that they've got no plans to follow up that suggestion with a move for Cristiano Ronaldo. So as much as people around the world, as much as those who do play FIFA and other video games might have wanted to see Ronaldo and Messi in the same shirts on the same pitch, doesn't sound like that's going to happen. But it really is, he's going to have limited options. And I think he found that in the summer, didn't he? money. I mean, look, Chelsea were one of the few clubs who potentially could have afforded the deal. I remember I was out on the Chelsea pre-season tour, and there was a lot of talk there about whether Todd Boehly would get his wish and be able to sign Ronaldo. But Thomas Tuchel at the time put his foot down and essentially said he didn't want him to join the team, and they went in another direction. And then there were limited options. I think one of the few came from Saudi Arabia, but then that didn't materialise in the summer. So potentially, could there be an offer from the Middle East? Could Saudi be a destination? Possibly, could it be the MLS? Or would it be one of Europe's big clubs? Will there be that romantic return to Sporting? But then again, the noises from Sporting suggested that they couldn't get the finances together. They couldn't do a deal that was going to suit all parties in the summer. And again, he's gone down the romantic route once. He's come to a club in Manchester United that has fallen such a long way since he was here as a player, since they were winning titles year in, year out. Would he really, at this stage of his career, want to go back to Sporting and get involved in another project there? Limited options, I would suggest. However, he still carries the weight of the name. We're still talking about him. That shows the interest in Cristiano Ronaldo. And commercially, he is still a huge draw. He'll know that. He'll know his own value. He'll want to play football. I think that much is clear. And I guess his performances at this World Cup may just give us a clue as to exactly the level at which he'll be playing after Christmas.
Two big stories at Manchester United this evening. Ben Ransom is on site to keep us updated and well across them. For now, Ben, thank you.
And we'll get some reaction from former Manchester United winger Lee Sharp, who is excited at the prospect of the Glazers selling up, or at least selling some of their stake. He believes there may have been some pressure on the family to sell following Ronaldo's blockbuster interview with Piers Morgan.
A lot of fans will be very happy about this, and maybe this is part of the backlash from the Cristiano Ronaldo Piers Morgan interview. He said the club's still stuck in the dark ages and was the same as when he was there first time round. Maybe they do need a new jacuzzi and a new dressing room. I know a lot of the fans that go to the games tell me there's leaks in the roof and the seats are broken, so I know the stadium needs an upgrade. So maybe this is all part of the backlash from that interview, and everybody will be benefit from this. I think the fireworks will be going off. I think there'll be a party. I think everybody will be absolutely delighted that this is going to go ahead if it goes ahead. I mean, it looks certainly a very serious option for them now. So let's keep our fingers crossed and let's make the fans happy, and let's rebuild the club as well as the team.